It's Monday, September 14th, 2020, and this is episode 207 of the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me today, as usual, Eric Nathanson. What's up, Eric?
Not much, just happy that the Giants still get to play baseball.
They're still playing baseball and coming back, founder of TortureCast, Willie Dills Gregory. You guys don't have fires out there in Austin. I'll have to pardon myself if I cough a little bit today. I've been out a lot in this, doing a lot of yard work in this smoke. The AQI's been like hovering around 200 for the last week, and it's like finally starting to get to me.
Oh my God!
How you doing out there?
Yeah, it's been sad kind of to see all the, obviously a lot of my Facebook timeline is still filled with people from San Francisco, so it was just all crazy photos. You were sending us the photos from when you were at AT&T or Oracle Park to cover a game and what the sky looked like. And it's nuts. This is every year now. Every year, the whole state of California just catches on fire. Now we've creeped into Oregon.
I was gonna say, I think we're like contagious. Now we've spread to Oregon and Washington.
Right?
The whole West Coast is on fire now. It's insane.
Yeah, here it's been brutally hot, but we luckily had a couple of days of rain. So like I actually went out golfing the other day, and the rough was like thick and green, and the greens were actually kind of soft, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. Because usually this part of the summer, it's not really summer anymore, right? But it still kind of is in Texas. It's still hot as hell in September, but it's usually everything is so dry, right, at this point that the ground is just hard as hell. Like you can't put your tee into the tee boxes and stuff. Yeah. But luckily we've had an interesting September so far. So still in it's the 90s. It rains and it's still like 95 outside, but at least it's like wet. So, but yeah,
we could use a little bit of that. Right now, for sure. No, it's good. I mean, yeah, things are bad out here, but at least our family's all safe and tight, and I'm sure you guys are too. We have some interesting stuff that happened with the Giants this week, that's for sure, related to everything that's going on. Like you just said, the fires affected the Giants on Wednesday, the game I went to. That was insane. We'll talk about that in a second. And then some COVID stuff later in the week. But let's go ahead and recap. The Giants, since our last podcast, went 2-3 for one of the weirdest weeks I can remember, even for 2020, to be honest. But let's look at the good news here. The Giants had pulled to 2 games above 500. They've slipped back to 1 under. However, they still hold the 8th seed for the National League playoffs, and they have only 13 games to go. They got a 1.5 game lead on both Colorado and Milwaukee, a 2 game lead on Cincinnati and the Mets. So, and they're 1 game back of Philadelphia, who holds the 7th seed right now. So, any aspirations of the Giants somehow sneaking into the number 2 seed, I think, are long gone. That's just not happening. That's okay. We threw that out as a possibility last week if the Giants went in and somehow swept the Padres. We were saying that was the only way that could even possibly happen. That's not happening. But I'm going to say this right now, especially after the 8-16 start this year. If you said, yeah, but with 13 games to go, they're going to have a 1.5 game lead for the 8th spot. I mean, would you take that? I mean, like in a heartbeat, right? I mean, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. They're right here. I mean, they're going to be competitive all the way down and have a shot all the way into the last week of the year. So there's not much more you can ask for from this team, especially with the low aspirations a lot of people had for them this year.
It's been so nice to see them stay in a hunt in September. Like we talked the last couple of weeks about how, hey, same thing. We would have bought into this if they were entering September in a pennant race. And they're still in a pennant race, quote unquote, since they're fighting for that 8th seed. Yeah.
Not really for the pennant
there are
yet,
kind of quotes around it, Milwaukee and Cincinnati will beat up on each other a little bit, and so that should keep the Reds down. I mean, the Giants kind of control their own fate. They play the Rockies, who are behind them, and the Phillies and the Marlins are going to continue beating up on each other ahead of them in the standings. So as long as they keep the Rockies and Brewers at bay, they're going to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the key is the Seattle and Colorado series, because the Padres and the Dodgers series, it's like, okay, we're not going to lose ground technically to those teams. It's, do we lose ground to the other teams around us that are actually competing with us for this last spot? And I don't know, man. Going 2-4 in those 6 games would probably be kind of enough if we can beat up on the other teams. But I had weird hopes that this season there was going to be 4 teams out of the West in the playoffs at a certain point because it looked like that actually could happen. But now the way things are shaking out, because we play the Rockies, it's like it's basically either us or them who's getting in, right? So it's going to be exciting at least. And if you'd have told us when we did the preseason show that we'd be in a position right now where the last 13 games of the season were going to matter, I don't think we would have thought that it was going to be like that. So I'll take it. Personally.
Certainly not in, like Eric said, the Giants control their own destiny. When you're kind of losing, if you're a couple games behind, you need help, right? The Giants don't need help right now, technically. If they go out there and handle their business, if they go 12-1, there's no one that could catch them, right? They go 11-2, pretty much guaranteed, right? Obviously, they're not going to do that.
13-0,
but they had that one stretch.
One team.
Yeah, specifically one team. Of course, they had that one stretch. They went 15-5, which was incredible. So if they do something like that, I mean, no worries. But let's go ahead and kind of wrap up the week, review the week. So Tuesday they started at home at Oracle Park for concluding their homestand. This is a game against the Mariners. The Mariners were actually hot coming in. They had won 6 in a row, and actually after they left San Francisco, they started winning again. So for some reason, the Giants just put the kibosh on the Mariners' winning streak because the Mariners are actually also in playoff contention, battling for that 8th seed in the American League. But on Tuesday night, they won 6-5, but they were trailing 5-1 at one point. However, you had homers by Mauricio Dubon, Alex Dickerson, and then, of course, you had, and I have it right here, you had Darren Ruff come up in the bottom of the 7th and tie game 5-5. Then Mike Chrome, of course. There it goes. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, that's what you get for trying to set up the show a little early. Sometimes your Chrome will time out, and then you're screwed.
I totally thought it was
we'll skip that.
Moments. Yeah, I thought it was one of those moments where it played, but we didn't hear it, so I was going to sit here and pretend.
Yeah, I was just going to just let it happen and be like, oh, man, that was a great moment. Yeah.
Oh, it was one of those things where, an hour ago, I set up all the video highlights, and something happened with Chrome, and it just, took a crap. So, anyway. So, yeah, Darren Ruff came up and then crushed a home run. And, of course, Crumbs brings up my Mauricio Dubon home run,
down the left field line,
which is not the same,
pretty well.
But it did tie the game.
Yeah. Out of here. And this game is tied.
Yeah,
that was a fun home run.
This was the 4th inning, too. All this had happened, and the game was, just getting started, and I was like, oh, God, it's going to go – this is going to be, 15-14 or something. And then, no, one more run the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy that Seattle didn't score the rest of the way. And, I mean, again, the Giants' bullpen, after really the beginning of the season, has not come back down to earth, has actually just done really, really well, aside from a couple of rotten eggs. And this was a good example of it right here, where the bullpen held them at bay, allowed the Giants to come back, tie it, and then go ahead in the 7th. And Seattle didn't score another run, so they ended up winning it.
Yeah, because Webb pitched the first 5 innings, and then the bullpen blanked him the rest of the way. So that's been kind of the story in a lot of the Giants games is, we just go to the bullpen in the 4th inning, and we just, every guy gets an inning, and they somehow make it work.
Well, in a season like this, you kind of appreciate the go for it attitude. You really want to see them try to win every game possible at this point. And Webb didn't really have it that night either.
No.
He was scuffling. He was walking guys, giving away free bases left and right. And it was nice to see that the offense bailed him out. And I feel like the past 5-6 years of Giants baseball, the starter just gets left hung out to dry in those situations. And now with the Giants offense, like you said, by the 5th inning, it was already tied back up. And the Giants were able to, pull ahead in the 7th with the Ruff home run. It's why I think they could actually do damage in the playoffs because they win these kind of games.
Sure.
Yeah.
By the way, Sandoval went 2 for 4 in this game.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Wow. Last plate appearance.
Not loud contact though. I think that's kind of the issue that he was. He was hitting. He went 2 for 4 to get to 220 or something like
220
that.
220 is how he ended. Yeah. Exactly. No, it's great because this offense is so much better than the last even 5 years, even the championship years. The offense has not been this good. And so, even just last year, let alone the previous few years, they're down 5-1, even in the 3rd. You're like, well, okay, this game's over. I mean, that's the kind of feeling I would always have in those kind of games. And this one, it was kind of like 5-1. Oh, it's only the third? Oh, well, I got time. Let's see what happens. And sure enough, boom, 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 boom. So, I mean, that is one thing that, Eric, you bring up a good point. It's you get in the playoffs, anything can happen, but if this offense stays this dynamic and this explosive, I mean, they can, put away any 2, 3, 4 run deficit they may have in that first round if they get in.
And as long as their bullpen keeps holding up their end of the bargain, I mean, they're getting into other teams' bullpens. They caught a couple breaks this week. They didn't take advantage of the one against San Diego on Thursday, but in the next game we're going to talk about, wasn't that the game that the guy took the line drive off his hand, or was that in this first game? That was this game. The guy took a line drive off his hand and knocked him out after 2 innings, and they had to switch pitchers. Then the Giants were fortunate to get in the bullpen early. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so the Giants have done a really good job of beating up on bullpens and having their bullpen shut down the other teams.
Yeah, it's good shit. So then they had a mini 2-game set with Seattle. They concluded that on Wednesday, and this is a game I was able to cover. I got credentials, and this was
a fun one, huh?
This was, first of all, if you ever want to go to a game, regardless if you're covering it or attending as a fan, this is the kind of game you want to go to. So I drew the long straw on this one, which is great. But it was the weird day. No matter that we've had all the smoke in the skies for the last 3 or 4 weeks, that day, Wednesday, was the most unusual day I've ever seen weather-wise in my life. I mean, just to wake up, I remember my alarm went off at 7 a.m. that morning. And I woke up and, I have a little sunlight coming through my window usually. And I woke up and it was dark. And I was like, well, no, my clock must be off. There's no way it's 7 a.m. It's usually sunny by then, or at least there's good light. So I pull up the shades, and it's just I was like, oh, fucking zombies are coming. I mean, this is it. This is the end of the world. I mean, it was just this bright orange. I mean, and it stayed that way the entire day, but it was that twilight kind of brightness, even though it was a dark orange. So everywhere you went, you had to have headlights on. We had lights on in the house. It was really weird. And so my drive up, which I texted you guys those pictures, on the 280 and stuff. It was like that the entire way. Everyone's headlights are on, all the street lamps are on, and it just looked like, this is what happens when the end of the world comes. And then to come to Oracle Park and then see all of the lights on for BP. I mean, when I got into the stadium, it looked like a night game. It looked like a freaking night game, and it was like 4:30 at the time. It was unreal. And where I was sitting, so they have the press box, of course you guys know where that is. In front now for this year, because of social distancing and all that, they put up these temporary card tables in that walkway right below the press box. And so our buddy Ryan Leong was going to cover that night. So there weren't really 2 seats side by side in the press box. So I said, I'll sit a little closer to the field. And I sat down there and kind of right behind home plate. But ash was falling the entire day and the entire game. So when I got there, I was able to write a Giants logo in my seat in the ash. I have some video of that.
Oh my gosh.
And then at the end of the game, I was like brushing off my computer because there's all this ash like in the keys and stuff. And I was like, oh, this probably isn't good for my laptop. But yeah, great game. I mean, no matter the conditions.
So surreal. I wanted to ask you about that. All right, as our listeners know, you're a scientist. So, do you have any knowledge as to why it stayed that color all day and it hasn't been like every day isn't like that? Because I mean, it's just weird that one day stood out like that. And as somebody who doesn't understand that, I don't understand how one day was like that and the next day wasn't.
So what it was there was an inversion layer that was not happening. So there was a marine layer that came in and basically formed a little bit of a bubble near the ground. So the air quality near the ground wasn't too bad. It was moderate. If you're familiar with the air quality index, it was all like below 100 for most of the Bay Area. And like right now, out my window, it's like 170 right now.
Yeah, it's gotten worse actually since then.
So most of the smoke was in the upper atmosphere, not in the ground. So it was all stratified up, high. So that was scattering all the blue light. And then all that was left was yellow and red and, those kind of colors on that end of the spectrum.
It was like looking through like one part of a prism or something, right? Yeah, where we were.
Exactly right. So all the blue was gone. So that's what happened. And it only happened Wednesday because Thursday we woke up. They said, it might happen again on Thursday. I woke up Thursday and it was just gray. It just is smoky out there, right? That's what it looks like. It's like someone's holding a big barbecue somewhere, but...
That's what it looked like the time when I came to visit when the fires were a lot closer to San Francisco. Because this time it's not like they're far, but I mean, they were like right down the way or whatever when I visited the first time when everyone was wearing the masks and all that stuff. But it was just literally like this. It was like being in a thick fog.
Yeah.
That's kind
of what it looks like right now.
That didn't smell like a fog. Like
no,
a fog doesn't have a smell really. It kind of smells like dew, right? But this was just like horrible ash and grossness. Yeah. But yeah, the pictures everyone was sending was just like they're on a different planet.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Chad, did it feel like you watched baseball on Mars? I mean,
that's what I tweeted out. I was like, "Come join us as I cover baseball on Mars tonight." I know it was weird to look beyond the scoreboard and everything was still that dull orange, even after the game started with all the lights on. So it was.
I was wondering how it was going to affect like outfielders making plays and stuff.
Me too.
Because
it was smoky in the stadium, but not too bad.
Like that before.
Oh. I don't know. I just know that if there was a picture that you could like text back to your former self a year ago, sure. without any context, without any words, you'd be like, "What the hell is going on? There's fake people in the stands. There's an orange sky. Like what is going on?" Oh man, this is weird. But the game started off really well. The Giants whip up 10 runs. That's they're doing really well at home.
Let's go.
And we'll get to that too. There was a lot of weird things that happened that day. There was the orange sky, a Giants explosion, and the Giants signed Justin Smoke. So I mean, it was just like, what the hell's going on? Everything's lining up. But yeah, bottom of the third, Mike Yastrzemski steps up with runners on second and third, one out, and this is what got the steamroller going.
High drive to right. It is out of here. His 9th of the year, and he's done it again with 2 strikes.
Yeah, so Mike Yastrzemski let it off, and the floodgates just opened after that. It was absolutely fantastic. They end up scoring 10 runs in the inning. A great start by Tyler Anderson. He ends up going 6 innings, allows 4 runs. He was just dominant. His off-speed stuff was great. He looked great from where I was sitting. And then, near the end of the game, my buddy Ryan was, covering the game with me. And there was a couple foul balls below us. And he's like, "Did you go get them?" And I was like, they say don't go. You can't roam. I don't want to get kicked out. I value these credentials. And he just walks down there, just like, after they're like the grounds crew's out on the field and everything, he just walks down, finds the ball, comes up, and he goes, "Here you go." So anyway, I just want to say, give a shout out to Ryan Leong. There it is.
One of the few people to get a ball this season.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's why I said don't lick it. Did you see in Chicago when one of the fielders he threw the ball to somebody on the rooftops and the guy like kissed it right away, and it's dude,
it's like,
wow, man, like
yeah.
COVID protocol. Come on now. Oh yeah, I doused this with hand sanitizer. No, I put that in my jacket
pocket. It's probably fine now. COVID, I don't think lives on a baseball longer than at least a few hours.
Oh, and then I sent you guys that picture of I took a selfie with Lucille or whatever, and so I was
with the mask on. Yeah,
I was heading to the John on that one. And I kind of popped out, and I was like, "Do you mind?" And they're usually in character. He's not in character right now. He's just like,
why?
He just kind of
no little kids running around. Yeah.
No, his shoulders just kind of slumping. He was like, "Yeah, whatever." He actually talked.
I feel bad for him during the games. I mean, what is there to do? You can't walk around. Did you guys see this new friggin' Diamondbacks mascot? It's a rat.
What?
And it is.
Rat.
It's a
no,
rat.
I have not seen
snake
this.
food, basically.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say.
That's what's confusing about it. But his name is Rat Leon because their hashtag is Rattle On, and it's the same letters.
Oh my God.
But
it's so
reach.
Stupid.
That
right?
is a stretch. That is so goddamn lame. Anyway, all right. No, I have not seen that. Maybe that'll be like the crazy crab or the rusty guy who came out of the wall. It'll die.
It's a rat.
Quickly.
Why would you do that? I mean, it doesn't even connect to it's food for your team.
It is. It's food. So the other team should be the rat, right?
Right. That's
yeah.
weird.
Well, the Giants end up winning 10-1. Obviously, what were the stats here? We had Longo with 3 RBI. Obviously, Yaz had that 3-run homer. So great game. It was one of those fun
by the
games.
way,
that
was the only home run the Giants hit that day. They got all their other runs off of just rallies. So
yeah, and they had 13 hits that game and 37 at bats. So hitting it above a 350 clip.
The Yaz homer, his 9. He and Wilmer lead the team with 9. They're right on the cusp of double-digit homers finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about on the season preview episode where people are going to get to 20. It looks like multiple people are getting to 20 the way things are going. I mean, Trout has 19 already, so is he just going to get there? Like,
seems like
moment?
it. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, my God, he's on pace for like a 60 home run season.
A ton of guys just mashing.
And we'll be lucky if the Giants leader has, 11 or 12. But even so, they've spread it around this year. Dick gets hot for a while, Belt gets hot for a while, Yaz gets hot for a while. Solano doesn't hit the long ball as much, but he gets hot. Solano's leading the league in hitting still. So
yeah.
They really show it. Like you said, that Yaz homer was the only homer during that game. So the Giants can put together rallies just with the base hits. Longo specifically has been on a really good tear of hitting away from the defense.
Oh, wait, no, Trout has 16. Sorry, I thought he
16.
had.
Okay.
I thought he had more. Yeah,
still possible. Still possible.
Somebody will get there.
Yeah. Someone can get hot, but I mean, if Yaz or Flores gets to 10 by the end of the year, you multiply that by 3. So these guys are on a 30 home run pace, which is fantastic. Right. I mean, geez, who would have thought that? But
But anyway, we're going to have to do the season wrap-up show. We're going to have to be like, well, this person did this many things, but if you projected over 162 game season,
so basically,
which you can always do,
by 2.7 every single thing. Because I've been doing the math on these things already for multiple things this season, like the win streak. It's like, okay, if you win this many in a row, multiply by 2.7. It's like a 20-game win streak we're on.
That's right.
So
when they won 6 in a row, that was like it was like 17 games.
Yeah, so that 5-game win streak was really like a 13.5, 14-game win streak until they went to San Diego and played like the Giants.
And that's what tempered it, and that's what got them in a position where they are holding the 8th seed right now. So it took a little bit of the sting off the San Diego series, but still the inability to win one game is really what hurt. But you're right. They won 5 in a row after that second Seattle win, heading into San Diego. And we talked about it. We really wanted them to win both games against Seattle because we knew San Diego was going to be tough. We're like, if they split against Seattle, they got to split against San Diego. But even if they sweep Seattle, I mean, if you split 4 in San Diego, they're going to be fine. You lose 3 out of 4, you might have some problems, but you're still going to be okay. They didn't even just lose 3 out of 4. They lost 3 out of 3. And we'll get to that in a second. But they go in Thursday. They lost 6-1. Trevor Cahill gave up 4 runs in 3 innings. But the silver lining for this game was Drew Smyly. Oh, my God. He looked like the second coming of Sandy Koufax out there. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah,
but
8 strikeouts in a relief appearance? How often
4
does that
innings.
happen?
Yeah, he was the first Giant to strike out 8 or more in a relief appearance since Scott Garrelts in 1984.
Jeez. Oh, man, that's a name.
Yeah, I know, right? Good old Garrelts. And I think he relieved Mark Davis that game too. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, and he went 8 innings. Yeah, he didn't go 4. So, I mean, just, great performance by Smyly, and we'll see what happens in terms of a rotation, and we're not going to get too into deep about that because we have
Cahill
Samardzija.
looked real bad in this game. Cahill just looked like he just could not find the location at all. It just everything he was throwing. It was like, it's weird because I'm watching our catchers do this weird framing thing, which apparently is like amazing, and all the advanced stats say that we have like the best framing catchers in baseball. But you know how they have this weird thing where they're putting the glove up and then they're dropping it and then they're like bringing it back up. And you probably heard Krugo talk about how he wouldn't like it. So it's kind of hard to see the target sometimes, but here it was like so obvious how badly he was missing everything. Like it was just by miles, you know what I mean? You call for it low, it's freaking up around the belt. Like it was hard to watch. And the thing is, we were so excited about him, 2 weeks ago or whatever when he joined us. But he's a hit or miss guy at this point in his career, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he had one good start for them, and then he's kind of proven to be why he's been a journeyman for a little bit. Yep. And Smyly though is great hope. I want to see another year of Smyly. I really want to see them make sure to hold on to him for next year because this has been too short of a stint. And I think Smyly has got his mechanics when he repeats them. They're just kind of beautiful to watch sometimes. He unfolds in that way.
He may need to be a starter for us here with whatever was happening with Gosman, right? So
yeah, because Gosman's his back is hurting or something right now.
He's got shoulder or elbow tightness.
Elbow, that's like that. Yeah. But I think Cap basically said Smiley's going to be a starter the rest of the way.
He should be.
Without saying
it. Yeah. Without saying it. Yeah.
Right. Cahill's going to lose his spot in the rotation if they have to pull somebody out. The fact that they had 2 off days this week was supposed to benefit them. But for all we know, they might be playing Thursday or a doubleheader next week. So it's going to change that up a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to need all of our arms to do basically whatever needs to be done. That's kind of the weird thing about this team right now is you can't just be like, well, I'm a starter and I'm a reliever and I'm a 6th inning guy and I'm an 8th inning guy. And whatever. Like everyone has to be kind of ready to go whenever we need you to go. And Samardzija might be. Apparently, the word is he's bullpen if he gets used again for us. So,
good.
We're gonna have all sorts of weird stuff.
He should be a one-inning guy that comes out.
Sure, come in, just blow it out, man. Go hard.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what if he becomes like a John Smoltz, right? You know, he blows it out for 1 inning and ends up being a good
John
closer.
Smoltz, Dennis Eckersley, like there's tons of guys like that. Who, you take them out of starting rotation, give them closer position or bullpen guy.
Well, Shark was a bullpen guy when he first came up with the Cubs, and they tried him out as a closer, but even though he has the mentality, he didn't have the mentality. So he's not, averse to it. I think he'd be willing to do like he said. I mean, it's 2020, man. You got to do whatever the hell you can to win this shortened season.
I feel like pitchers need to embrace it when this part of their career comes, like Smoltz did, right?
Yep.
Like Lincecum maybe didn't, and he should have, and maybe he would have been like a dominant closer for a couple of years, and then instead he was like, no, I'm a starter. In fact, actually, no, I'm not a major leaguer. Whoops.
Yeah, I know. Oh. Yeah, the flame burned out too fast on that guy. So Friday, that was weird, man. It was like getting right up to game time. No one suspected a thing. At least not us in the public, right? And then suddenly, boom, postponed due to a positive COVID test in the Giants organization. And it was like,
so I went golfing that day. I was so excited to go home and be all sore and watch baseball. And I got home like 30 minutes before. I ordered food. I had everything ready. And then all of a sudden I'm like, isn't it supposed to be on? What's going on? And then I look on Twitter and they're like, they came out, they did the national anthem, and then they all left the field. I was like, okay, what does that mean? Because I remember there was another game earlier where I guess they'd come out and then went back in where we don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden they all took the field and played. So maybe it was just like, oh, they were waiting for a test to come back or something. But I guess this time a test came back positive. So there you go.
Yeah, and there was a lot of speculation as it came out, and of course, the media needs to be very, very careful about what they say and what their sources are. It came out later that it was a player, and then it came out later that it was Alex Dickerson, and then there were some other media reports about he visited friends and family, and it kind of started to blow up until finally they got it all squared away, and it ended up being a false positive. He subsequently tested negative on 2 sequential tests, one the Giants had and one that Padres actually ran over and gave him, said, here, we have an extra test. So they helped him out, and he tested negative twice. So they were able to kind of get back on the field because Saturday's game was canceled as well, or postponed as well. And they were able to make it up Sunday, at least one of those games, as part of a 7-inning doubleheader. But the fallout was bad because the Giants actually ended up not testing positive. There was no actual reason to postpone these games other than the initial false positive. But there was some emotional fallout of it. And so I just wanted to play maybe a little bit more of Alex Dickerson's pregame press conference yesterday, Sunday, talking about the experience he and his family had.
I want to start off by thanking both the front office, coaching staffs, and medical staffs of San Diego Padres and San Francisco Giants for all the help over the last 2 days. Support was amazing. We were able to get everything we needed in order to make sure that everything was fine and everybody was healthy. That means a lot. I do want to bring to light the fact that false reporting did happen in my situation. It had extremely negative effects on me and my family. And to put it specifically, a report that from USA Today saying that the player, who remains unidentified, told several members of the Giants traveling party that he believed he was possibly infected by a family member or friend in San Diego. It's completely false. And those kind of statements lead to a steamrolling effect that caused my wife, who is 39 weeks pregnant, to deal with a lot of stuff she did not deserve to deal with. And it was not easy. Sorry. Because a lot of this, especially when you're dealing with pregnancy and COVID-19, it is not a good thing. And to make the assumption that I came in and went and broke protocol and saw family and friends when I'm only permitted to see my wife as the only person I saw, and who was quarantined and was on bed rest. It caused a lot of problems. A lot of hate can come toward you, and it was kind of unwarranted. But I do respect a vast majority of everybody that, reported on what they knew and was able to.
All right, I'll just leave it at that. But you get the gist of it there. I mean, it sucked for him and his wife. His wife, who's about to give birth, was already on bed rest, so she could go at any time. Obviously, there's some physical medical concerns there. And then suddenly that happens, where it's a false report, and then he and his wife have to deal with the fallout of people accusing him of things. And I mean, it sucks. And who knows if it had any effect on the results on the field, but it's something the Giants shouldn't have had to deal with. And it just stinks that there was some procedural error with the test that caused this false positive.
Bob Nightingale. I'm totally going to say the name, and it's like a 4-letter word, man. Bob Nightingale. A pro tip for anybody who follows baseball writers on Twitter or reads them. Bob is not your friend.
No,
Bob
he's got a long history, man.
Yeah, he's really bad at all
really
of this.
Yeah.
Like my old joke is, if Bob tells you it's going to be sunny, you better bring an umbrella, because Bob gets it wrong all the time. And it was really reckless of him to put it out there like that and to report something that was obviously unsubstantiated, because Dick came out with his own statement about it and we just listened to him, and there's no reason that he needs to be going through. This sounds like a man who's trying to do everything he can to keep his family together while he gets to play baseball this season. He doesn't need the added stress of false reporting going on top of that. I think that's what frustrates me the most about this story. I mean, yeah, the false positive happens. It happens around, and it also makes you wonder, that's the other point, how many false positives there are around the country for normal, regular people, but they don't necessarily get the chance to follow up a couple times like Major League Baseball players do. But, Dick handled it well, I think, because I'm sure he's being honest. Gaussman wouldn't have said he wanted to stay with the Giants if their protocols weren't the best. So I'm pretty sure Dick wanted to stay in place. So it's just a shame all this had to happen. And I 100% do believe it kind of screwed with their mojo a little bit. I'm not going to say, after Thursday's performance, I'm not going to say, well, they were on fire, but no pun, sorry. But I do think that it kind of screwed with their mojo. And Dickerson said he barely slept. And we all know, you can't play 2 baseball games if you have barely slept for the last couple of days. So hopefully having the day off today should get the Giants to regroup a little bit better. But it just really sucks that they had to go through this.
Yeah. Yeah, it also kind of highlights that not every baseball player is in a position like Buster Posey where they can just take a season off because they are not, potential Hall of Famers, right? Like, they're still fighting for their baseball careers. And I would say a guy like Dickerson falls into that category, like where he, maybe he would have taken the season off given the family situation if he felt like, hey, I'm going to have a job next season, the season after that, right? Like, but not everybody's in that position. So he's doing like what he can. And then to have them people come down on him with a false report like this. And it's just, it makes you angry, but it's just, this is the problem with, I guess, kind of like you said, that it's this guy specifically, but also I think it's a problem with kind of how media has shifted, like its goalposts, right? Where it's like before it was, well, there's an article in the paper and it's vetted and, editors have looked over it and we made sure all the names and facts are correct. And now it's like, well, now I just go to Twitter and I just report something because I want to get likes and retweets. So it's like the how they're measuring their success as a reporter has changed from just did I get an article in tomorrow's Chronicle, or now it's like how many followers do I have on Twitter? So people are like a lot more reckless these days, and you can see the actual results of it right here, where literally it just like brings a man to tears, right? Because of all the stuff he had to deal with. That's crazy. That's messed up. Sports. It shouldn't happen.
I will say this, though, quickly. The beat guys did a fantastic job with this story. The beat guys did not out Dickerson like that. They did not report on the rumors. They stuck with the facts. Hank did a whole thread about it last night, talking about how ethically none of them just seemed like it made sense. Because, like, even The Athletic has a policy to not release a player's name who has COVID unless the player thatself is willing to make it public. Mm-hmm. And I think Hank and Bags and Pavlovich and Kerry Crowley all kind of seemed to take that same tone. So at least locally, I thought they handled it well.
Yeah, I didn't know who it was for like 2 days or something like that, right? So
yeah, I didn't either.
I read
into it.
This jabroni, so
no, never.
Do you know if there's? I haven't. I used to follow Bob Nightingale a long time ago, but I stopped because I couldn't stand his coverage. But do you know if there's been a fallout personally for him? Has he been like ostracized or attacked professionally, or is just like, there's no harm, no foul?
Right. It doesn't seem like it. I feel like there's been jabs taken at him, but they're just verbal jabs that people are sliding into
on
other
Twitter
things.
From fans, not necessarily from other. That's I guess one of the problems, right? There's a lot of potential reward here and not a lot of risk for him, right? I mean, just go ahead and just say whatever.
But you got to hope people like Ken Rosenthal and Buster Olney are on the phone with Bob being like, Bob, what the hell are you doing, man? Sure. We need these guys to trust us, too, with information when it's coming out. So we can't have you being this reckless. I would hope, at least behind the scenes, there had been some chatter from his colleagues.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
Yeah, I don't know how much you gain. I mean,
sometimes they look out for each other a little more than, you know what I mean?
That's
it's like,
true.
A lot of things like this happen where it gets a little fraternized a little bit around protecting each other so that everybody is okay. But you're right. I mean, they should say this makes it harder on us. It makes it harder to do my job when, it's a combative relationship, right? Because we don't trust each other. So,
Well, they had to take all that baggage out with them on the field on Sunday yesterday and play a doubleheader, of course, this year in 2020. Doubleheaders are 7-inning games. This is the way, like, I used to play when I was playing amateur ball. We'd have doubleheaders, and they were both actually, we'd play a 9, then a 7. But they went out. Johnny Cueto did not look very sharp. They lost 6-0. Zero offense to speak of. They also faced new Padre Mike Clevenger, which they got via trade a couple of weeks ago, and he's just steamrolling in the National League like he did in the American League. He went the full 7 innings for the technical shutout, and he only allowed 2 hits, and he struck out 7. Cueto gave up 4 earned and a little more than 5. The defense also gave up a couple of unearned runs as well. So that was just one of those games where it was kind of like right from the beginning. You had that feeling, especially the way Clevenger was going.
I mean, it's the Giants and Padres this year. They have our number. They just do.
They do.
The Padres are a better team.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like I do think that the mojo was stolen a little bit, but I also think the biggest factor here was the Padres have an insane lineup, and we went up against kind of their best when it comes to pitching as well. So just didn't line up good for us.
No, sometimes you have to tip your cap, and I mean that rolls into the second game with them getting. At least they scored a run in the second game, but they still, we talk about the bullpen, but Sam Selman and the bullpen ends up giving up the lead. What was that, in the 5th inning? And it's so weird how it happened so quickly. Yeah, bottom of the 5th inning, Sam Selman, and then Tyler Rogers gives up a single for the second run, and then it's over. It's a 7-inning game, They score after the 5th inning, and it's like, oh, okay, great. We only got to retire the Giants 2 more times. And, Drew Pomerantz and Trevor Rosenthal did their jobs for the Padres. Just kind of tip your cap again. They were a better team, and they were much more prepared to handle yesterday than the Giants were.
Yeah, there's a little bit of hope because they did get that 1-0 lead.
0 grand slams, though.
There's still 4 games left against them, though.
I know, right? Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, actually, when I was before the Padres series, the Giants actually had the 3rd hardest schedule thus far in the National League. So I thought that was pretty amazing. based on, records of their opponents. Yeah. So again, not doing bad this year considering everything that's happened. So anyway, that wrapped up a 2-3 week. And as far as making up the game, they've proposed two things. I haven't heard anything in the last, 6 hours or whatever, but one was to schedule a doubleheader as one of the 3 games, now then 4 games, back in San Francisco for the last series of the year. Or they also have a kind of a communal off day. They both have Thursday off. Now the Giants go to Seattle for 2, and then they come back down to the Bay Area for 3 against Oakland. So hypothetically, they could just fly over Oakland or San Francisco and then go down to San Diego for 1 quick game. But that's a lot of extra travel and stuff. And I don't know if they're going to do that.
Or they could play the game in Seattle. The Padres go to Seattle for the weekend, and Seattle, the Giants, and the Padres are all off on Thursday, so the ballpark's open. So the Giants can just hang in town 1 extra day. The Padres come into town a little early, and they can play their game in Seattle.
That actually sounds the best.
Hey, as far as travel, that totally sounds the best,
Yeah.
But
I mean, obviously, the big thing for the Padres would be what? Like, oh, we're giving up home field advantage for the game that we should have played at our home. But it's like, does that really matter in a season like this? Like,
there's no fans. Who cares?
Let's just not have extra travel for any team. Like, I think
you're right,
whatever the solution is, just don't make any teams travel more. Right?
I kind of want that solution, though. I would love to watch a Giants-Padres game in another stadium. It just kind of,
well, that's going to happen in the playoffs, right? So
so I mean that folds right into that. So I guess they've been negotiating in the last couple of weeks, and what's going to happen is the first round, there's going to be 4 games in each league, and it's going to be at the higher seed, the better team, right? So the Dodgers probably locking up the number 1 seed. They get all 3 games at their park. It's best of 3. When we move into the second round for the National League, they're going to be playing at either Dodger Stadium, Angel Stadium, or Petco Park. And in the American League, they're going to be playing at Globe Life, home of the Rangers, or Minute Maid, home of the Astros. And then when we get to the World Series, and I believe the League Championship Series too, but definitely the World Series, everything's going to be at Globe Life Park. So that's weird. That's really weird. But again, in a year where there's no fans, and the Giants do have a better record at home than the road, and most teams still do. So there does seem to be a little bit, but I don't know if that's just because of you're batting last as opposed to it's your park. But I will say that there is probably some comfort that the players have to routine. Your own park, where you're going. There's none of that unfamiliarity with it. So maybe that does put them a little bit at ease for familiar surroundings. But that said, this is going to be the first time that a World Series played at one park since 1944, when I believe it was like the Browns and the Cardinals that played their World Series, but they shared the same stadium, right? So they just played all 7 games in the same stadium. So it's going to be wild. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's gonna look back.
Well, I mean, here's the question. We just watched basketball do this with the bubble. Are they gonna switch out stuff in the background? So when it's a Dodger home game, will it be Dodger stuff in the background and on all the logos?
A lot of that stuff is all green screen now, right? So it wouldn't be that difficult. Just change the graphics.
Yeah. The Fox game of the week. Sunday baseball or whatever, or Saturday baseball, they've been putting the digital fans in the stands. I mean, it looks so hokey, but
it looks so weird. I know. The first time I saw it, I thought, wait, what? They're letting people in? And then I was like, no, that looks so stupid. And then I realized it was happening. The crowd noise is one thing. I'm actually okay with it because it does, I'm just watching it on TV. So it at least makes it feel like what a baseball game feels like to listen to. But that's just a little too far, right?
Now that's just
we all get it.
Digital avatars just doing this the whole time. Yeah.
Did you guys see the Dodger fan who showed up to the game?
Yeah,
amongst the cutouts.
That was great.
Good for him. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he snuck in at the ballpark and then just hung out next to some cutouts and but the camera they discovered him and then they kept cutting to him and he was moving. He was eating peanuts and hanging out.
Oh man, it's one of those guys. I hope he wasn't charged with anything. I hope they were like, "Hey, that's a good one, guy." And they realized he was harmless.
Funny. Yeah,
and just
because he wasn't. It's not like he was brought his family and was all sitting around with each other. It's just one guy. You know what I mean? Someone had to do it.
Oh, that was
the Dodgers fans had a fun weekend because they got to scream at that Astros bus all weekend. And Joe Kelly went driving by, and he took calls on a call-in show the other night. Like, those Dodgers fans were real amped up for this whole weekend. So I totally get why somebody would want to sneak in for that.
Yeah, the Dodgers fans suddenly have a new team that they hate more than the Giants. It's crazy. Like,
I know,
they feel
weird.
really jilted, and like they actually feel like they stole their World Series trophy. Which, maybe they did, but I don't care. Dodgers don't have a trophy. I'm good. But that game where the Astros scored 5 in the 9th or whatever, like there was raging Dodgers fans on Twitter that night. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, no, it was great. And then conversely, it was nice to see Kenley Jansen give up 5. One of those nights as well.
That is good.
And lose.
That doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often. So, people were like, even Dylan Hernandez and others are like, well, the Dodgers are in postseason fashion already. But
I did do a double take when I saw it was Kenley out there. I was kind of like half watching. We were eating dinner, and I was like, wow, who's the Dodger pitcher giving up all these runs? My stepdaughter's like, some guy named Jansen. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that guy? Yeah, not some AAA scrub?
Are you kidding me? What? Kenley? Okay. I figured it was somebody like Joe Kelly or something.
All right, well, we're gonna skip who's hot, who's not, because it was a really, really short week and a couple of 7-inning games. Plus, against the Padres, they didn't do jack, so there's not much
hard to get
report
hot
on
when
anyway.
you have 2 sudden days off, right? So
yeah, it's not really the kind of the sample size for it, but did want to highlight transactions as we mentioned at the beginning of the top of the show, but just like Hunter Pence before him, Pablo Sandoval was designated for assignment this week. He was hitting .220 with 1 bomb and 82 at-bats, but the Giants had just signed Justin Smoke, and I think everybody, including you guys, saw the writing on the wall right away. He is a first baseman, a switch hitter, and it was like, gee, what is it? Who is this guy going to replace? I mean, he's going to be the second baseman. He's going to be it. And it's like, no, we knew what he was being signed for. Now, what I was surprised at, guys, I don't know about you, but I thought they were going to take like a week to assess him down at the alternate site, but maybe with just the short part of the season left, because it was the next day, basically, that they DFA'd Pablo and then signed him to, assigned him up from the alternate team. So I don't know.
It's because of playoff rosters. Tomorrow is the deadline to be on a big league ball club for the playoff roster. So I think they wanted to make sure to get Smoke at the major league level ahead of time. I mean, I'm with you. It kind of happened a little fast, but I mean, I guess there was no reason to take Pablo with them on the trip to San Diego. They don't want to pay his airfare.
Does he have to get 2 seats, by the way? I don't know. No, that was cold. Actually, because I knew that they had signed Smoke that day when I was at the park on Wednesday, Pablo came up in the 8th inning, and he was on deck. And I can't remember who was at the plate, but regardless, I was sitting there going, holy crap. If Pablo gets up, this might be the last time he ever gets up in a Giants uniform. And this is the last time I'm going to see him maybe in a Giants uniform. Live for sure. I didn't think he was going to be released the very next day, but sure enough, he unfortunately, they went 3-3 down in that inning. He did not get that at bat. And then, he never got to get up again. So it was just kind of sad. I mean, just like Hunter, he's one of these guys, they're more of a connection to the past than anything else. And we love them for what they've done for this team and their personality and who they are. It's just weird to see this team move on, especially with this new era with Farhan and Gabe Kapler. I mean, that leaves only Buster Posey as the last player. And of course, he's not even on the roster right now, but he'll be on the roster next year to be a part of all 3 championships. And then only Belton Crawford are linking to any of the other 2 championships. And that's it. I mean, that's all we got. So, but I mean, we are moving on 6 years now since the last one, so that's getting to a long time on a major league roster.
Yeah, Bochy was gone. That was kind of the end of that era to me, right? So it was kind of like time to start fresh. I think
it was like ripping the Band-Aid off. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's right. I was happy to see Pablo and Pence simply because I didn't think we were going to be competing at all this season, right? So it's just going to be kind of fun for them to have like a farewell tour. But then we were kind of competing. So now it's like, well, that was fun for a second. But guys, just FYI, we're trying now. So.
Yeah, we're actually trying to make a playoff push here. Yeah.
Thank you, but
yeah. Now I will say this though, Smoke is hitting under 200 this season. It's not like this guy's in like the prime time of his career, but he does have more pop than Pablo. So, it's not like it can't get much worse, right? Like 190 or something he's hitting to a 220, but he's actually hit 5 home runs. It's like, okay, that's a trade-off I'm willing to take, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's simply just a bat off the bench at this point.
Yeah.
Justin Smoke's not a missing piece for any organization's World Series aspiration.
He's like a Mike Morse.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, if we get to the playoffs and we need someone to come in and maybe be able to take 1 yard, he's a guy that can do that. So.
Yeah, he had Belt come in and pinch hit and homer the week before, so I think he kind of envisioned that Smoke could do that kind of job and not have to play the field that much because all he knows how to do is DH and play first. And the Giants have like 18 DHs on their roster this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Chad, you bring up right here. I'm going to segue into it unless you want to read what he said. I could. Did you read out what he said?
No, that's all I was gonna do. You can go ahead and read it if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a party message for Giants fans. The Giants put out a nice video. It was about a minute-long video of all the highlights of Pablo's career, and they also shared a statement with a big, bold thank you, San Francisco Giants, my teammates, coaches, and the best fans in the world. You've been everything I could have dreamed of and more. It's been an honor and privilege to play for you. My heart will forever be in San Francisco. And that actually, for me, rolls right into my best memory of Panda, which I know we're about to discuss, because my best memory of Panda is the fact that he was able to bring all of us back around. That he went off and was the prodigal son, and he went to Boston and he crapped all over the organization, and somehow he still won us all back in the last few years during non-championship years. And I think that's going to be my lasting memory of Pablo Sandoval, is the fact that he was just so happy and gregarious and willing to accept when he was wrong as well. That it just made him so much more human and so much more of a part of this baseball team. I mean, all the memories we have are collective memories. Now, Chad, you still have the best memory of any of us because you were live for one of them. But that's the thing that will always stick out with me with Panda, is that he kind of came around. We watched him go from a young rookie who was just this smiling kid who was a catcher to suddenly this, third baseman that could pounce on liners and this home run threat during certain playoff runs, to then being the older, wiser veteran leading guys in the clubhouse. And when you talk about a great Giant, Pablo Sandoval was a great Giant. And that's my memory of him, is he was a great Giant. He deserves to be put on the wall of fame.
Yeah, I agree.
Willie, how about you? What's your best memory of him?
Well, I got a few, but they're not all they all kind of blend together to the personality that he was. So obviously the time where he actually leapt over the Dodgers catcher to score the run, and that's how he got the name Kung Fu Panda. And I think it was Barry Zito, right, who decided that he should be called Kung Fu Panda after that. So it's kind of that's like a different era in the Giants, in the history of the Giants, and today, where Pablo was like the young kid coming up. Barry was like our big free agent pitcher acquisition who wasn't working out so well, but they all clearly still had an affinity for each other because they're still giving each other silly nicknames, right? But I remember it was just watching the big man just tumble over a catcher to actually score the run where he should have by all rights just been out. It was pretty sweet. And so that was kind of when I realized he's going to be a super fun player to watch, because I do remember I was at one of his earliest games where he was playing catcher for us. And I was sitting down the first base side, and I think that game he went 2 for 4 or something like that. And one of them was a double. It was one of his first real good games with the Giants, because he came up halfway through that season. And I was very excited for him, but it was kind of after that stuff, him blowing bubbles as he's rounding third base, all that kind of stuff, all came together to make him this big personality. But then for me, the one thing that I'll always I'll watch this video every day forever and be happy every time I see it, is him going down the line doing a different personalized handshake with every single player before a playoff game. Yeah. And one of them was doing a little dance with Hunter Pence, and all this stuff where it's each guy he stopped and checked in with, and clearly at some point in the season they'd come up with some elaborate handshake, and he remembered all of them perfectly. And it was just like, yeah, this is why you want a guy like this in your dugout, right? And that's kind of the hallmark of like that 2010, 2012, 2014 teams, like to me, because they were all different teams in a lot of ways, but they all like seemed to really like each other and playing with each other. And each one of those teams had that. That's the one like common thread. And I think Pablo is the kind of guy who had a lot to do with that. Pablo, Pence, like these kind of guys. So he's hopefully he kind of carries that into the rest of his life, because he could be a big personality. And I don't know if he'd cross over well to like English speaking, media, because he's got a pretty heavy accent, but it'd be cool to see him do in a, Spanish broadcast or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great.
Yeah, so I was about to say Buster Posey. Pablo Sandoval, he's 33 years old. He had a 13-year career. I mean, no one's saying he's 100% done. I think I would be somewhat surprised if anyone signs him next year, but you never know. I mean, we've seen stranger things. He's not 38, but of course his weight is a big issue and his decline. But with the Giants, he played in 1,149 games, had almost 4,000 at-bats, hit 135 home runs, 569 RBI, hit 285 with them. So, I mean, his 162-game average was 18 bombs and 78 RBI, and that includes his years in Boston. So a very, very good Major League career, nothing to be ashamed of. Obviously, World Series MVP, multiple-time All-Star. As far as my favorite memories, I remember, hearing all that buzz back in, like, the late 2000s when you had Tim Lincecum, and then you had Buster Posey and Pablo Sandoval, that eventually Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford, and then the pitchers coming up, Madison Bumgarner. There was just this pipeline of talent that lasted for a good, 5-6 straight years of these guys coming up. And so I loved going to San Jose because I live, just south of it, to watch these guys come up. And Pablo was one of them. And I remember seeing 2 or 3 games at San Jose's field while he was catcher. And he was special out on the field. You could just tell the way he moved, the pop in his bat. I remember one game he crushed a home run. It was during the beer inning, so everybody got beer, which was fantastic. Nice. He's just one of those guys. Gregarious. I got to interview him a couple of times. Really polite. Totally gave up his time. Not to mention all the great highlights, but of course, like Eric already mentioned, I happened to score tickets to Game 1 of the 2012 World Series against the Tigers, and of course, that was coming off those epic series against the Reds and the Cardinals, right? Where they had to have 3 consecutive elimination game wins. And it just felt like they were playing with house money at that point. They were exhausted. They were pushed to the brink in Game 7 against the Cardinals. Here they are in Game 1 against Justin Verlander. The Giants can't even throw their ace against him, so they're going to go with Barry Zito. Yeah.
Zito
Bob Nightingale.
Verlander. Yeah.
Who we just talked about, of course, is famous for saying the Giants don't even have a chance. Like, this is David and Goliath kind of thing. I mean, I remember reading all that stuff going, I don't know about that, but yeah, the Tigers are probably a better team. And then I remember riding Caltrain up, just going, you know what? I don't even care. I'm going to a World Series game. I don't care if the Giants get demolished tonight. This is going to be fun, right? Totally expecting them to get crushed. And then, of course, probably the best highlight of his career, the 3 home runs off the Tigers.
And Sandoval hits it into center. Back at the wall. Goodbye. 1-0 Giants and a home run.
I remember that first one. We're all like, hey, they're on the board. They got a lead. Woo! It's not going to last long.
Fly ball into left. Back at the wall. He's homered again.
That's where Justin Verlander does that. Wow.
Third week of August. Into center. At the wall. Another. Pablo Sandoval with a 3-homer game in World Series game number 1.
So I don't know if I've cheered as loud as I had at any Giants game, except maybe JT Snow's tying home run in the 9th inning against the Mets in the NLDS. Other than that, that might have been the loudest I've ever cheered, is that 3rd home run. Because you're watching something and you're like, it's kind of coming, or it could come. But then when you see it happen, you're like, what am I watching? What am I watching?
Well, that third one, too, to like dead center was just insane.
Dead center.
I love the John Miller call of that third one, like the Babe himself. Like it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was
that whole series we were doing
Mr. Buck.
we were syncing up the KNBR instead of like listening to the national broadcasters.
Yeah.
So I heard that version, and oh my god, yeah, such a moment. You think about that? It's Pablo, Babe Ruth, Reggie Jackson, and Albert Pujols.
That's the list.
That's a good list right there.
That's a pretty good list
to be a part of. Yeah,
not a bad list at all. So
you do nothing else your whole career. You hit 3 home runs in a World Series game, and your team wins that game. Yeah.
I mean, everybody else on that list is a Hall of Famer,
right?
Yeah, and we know. Obviously, we know he won't be.
Tied Willie Mays for career home runs. I mean,
yeah. But he's got free beers in San Francisco whenever he's in town. We know that.
Oh yeah.
So, and like you said, Eric, I mean, he really repaired his damage because when he left for Boston, he said basically the only guys he liked were Bruce Bochy and Hunter Pence, and everybody else is like, whoa, what am I, chopped liver?
It was a weird thing for him to say because it was clearly not true because you watched him be like the life of the clubhouse for so long. So I feel like in a way he had some people in his camp who were like pumping him up, right? This is how I felt about how things all kind of went down. I think somebody that was close to him, family member, friend, whatever, was telling him that somehow the Giants organization didn't appreciate him the way he should be appreciated. And obviously, like, money has a lot to do with that, like how much money they're willing to give you. Because, you know, the adoration was all with I mean, that 2014, when we had the rally and the parade and everything, I mean, the whole crowd was like, bring back Pablo. That was like the biggest thing. Because we knew it was like, you know, he was a free agent and everything. But he had been such a hero in that 2014 World Series, right? Yeah. That whole playoff run. So, you know, and he'd come from the doghouse previously because I remember when we, this is what, 2010?
2010.
When we beat, he was left off the roster. And when we played against, we played against the Phillies, he was back on the roster. And then I was at the game where he hit like, he had like a double or something like that. And then and then he scored on Juan Uribe's sac fly, and that actually ended up like winning us that game. So, you know, he had been in the doghouse previously, but I really feel like he might have said some things trying to kind of cut the ties, burn the bridges, so that he could feel like he was having like the real fresh start in Boston. Yeah. And I don't know if he really meant those things the way that they came across, right? But it was stupid of him to do that. It's just like, I think people get this way, especially after their third title and the adoration, but I'm still not getting the money. And, you know, sometimes they have some yes men around them, you know, whispering in their ear. They don't really appreciate you the way they should. And, you know,
he thought, and his camp thought he was a bigger superstar than he really was.
Yeah.
And the fact that he thought that he could coast on talent alone after that, you know, proved that he's not a superstar. And it seemed to humble him. And that's why it really came back around so well. Because I agree with you. Somebody had to have been in his ear. And it's a shame.
David Ortiz apparently was like, they were like, you come to Boston and me and you are going to be, you know, Big Papi and Little Big Papi, and we're gonna, you know what I mean? We're gonna tear it up. I think he really believed that he was gonna go to Boston, and those two were just gonna be like the tandem, you know.
And he thought it would just happen. He'd fall out of bed and hit home runs instead of putting in the work to do it. Yeah. You know, and it's sad though, because it's like you said, Willie. It goes back to your point. The Giants are competitive. And that's why they had to cut ties with Pablo this year, because he really wasn't getting the job done anymore. And it's not the way you want to see him go out. It's not the way you want to see Hunter go out. But this is life now as a Giants fan. And it's 6 years later, and you know they've got other things they've got to look forward to now. So hopefully Posey can come back and keep that connection. But pretty soon that connection is going to be severed for us.
Pretty soon it's time for a new era completely.
It's going to be
You know, I mean, obviously we've had flashes of old Brandon Crawford, flashes of old Brandon Belt. So like that's been fun to watch, but really, I mean, if I'm going to think about this season, I'm going to think about Yaz. I'm going to think about Solano. You know, I'm not really going to be. I'm going to be thinking about Bart coming up. I'm not going to be thinking about, oh, remember that time when Crawford still looked silky smooth at short? Like, you know, it's about the new guys now, the new era. So.
It is. They're going to be ushering him in. And just to close out Pablo Sandoval, I just wanted to read his postseason stats for the Giants. 10 series, 154 at bats, hit 344, with 6 bombs, 20 RBI. And his 3 World Series, he had 47 at-bats, hit .426.
Woo. Holy crap.
With those 3 bombs
production.
in one game.
That's postseason production right there.
I mean,
that would be the only thing I could think of for him is that next season somebody is like, needing a bat and they think they're going to make the postseason. And they look at those postseason stats and they go, we'll give Pablo a flyer just for, one last postseason. But yeah, I don't think he's like a full 162 game a year third baseman or even first baseman anymore. I think he's at best a DH for a bad team or a pinch hitter.
So, we'll see. I think it's up to him if he wants to continue doing it. But if he did, I mean, hey, look, we know as Giants fans, the weight hasn't been the factor that affects his physical performance. We know that, right? He's been huge both physically and when he's done well on the field. I think it's just age right now. So, all right. So we already talked about the big move, of course, this week with Pablo being DFA'd. But just a quick review of what the Giants did this week. In terms of roster transactions, on the 8th, they optioned Daniel Robertson to the alternate training site. They recalled Luis Basabe on the 8th. And by the way, I did see his major league debut. He actually played against the Mariners. He pinch ran in, I think it was the 6th inning or so, maybe the 5th. He scored a run, and then he got an at-bat in the 7th or the 8th. Very first pitch, he grounded out to second, so he got that over with real quick. But
he seems like an athlete, though, out in the outfield. He seemed to move around real well out there.
He moved really well, but he did miss that one ball. I mean, I'm not going to say it was a tough catch. It probably had like a 10% or less catching probability or whatever, but he tracked it down. He was there. He just his glove just kind of missed it.
Yeah, just didn't get it.
Yeah. They signed Justin Smoke on the 9th, of course. They activated Drew Smiley, and he was great. They optioned Rico Garcia back down to the alternate site, released Pablo. Then they selected the contract of Justin Smoke, which is why they DFA'd Pablo. Then they placed Trevor Gott on the 10-day IL. And he pitched that game, that 10-0 game. And although they had a really comfortable lead, it was just very frustrating to see him just walk everyone. He was like just walking Mariners like there was no tomorrow. But maybe the injury had something to do with it, so he's on the IL now. They recalled Rico Garcia on the 13th, and then they recalled Daniel Robinson, and then optioned him back down on consecutive days. So that must be fun if your name is Daniel Robertson.
He's been baseball in 2020.
Riding the bus back and forth between Sacramento and San Francisco all week long. So, but hey, he's happy to have a roster spot. All right, so coming up for the Giants, we mentioned they got 2 in Seattle starting tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then 3 in Oakland. And who knows what's going to happen if they somehow make up that game against the Padres, if they could squeeze it in Thursday. If they don't, then most definitely it's going to be during that last weekend. And right now, I don't know if I can imagine a scenario where they don't play that game. You know what I mean? Like, I think the Giants would have to be so far ahead or so far behind to where that one game wouldn't make a difference in the playoff standings. But I think they're going to play it anyway. We'll see what happens.
That's kind of why I brought up scheduling in the when we were talking pre-show, and you mentioned the bubble. Is that usually by now we know, AL wildcard game Tuesday, NL wildcard game Wednesday, AL starts Thursday, NL starts Friday with that great day of 4, games in one day. And we don't have a schedule yet because I don't think they really know how the hell they're going to handle this just yet. Yeah. Which also brings to mind quickly, but it's not for a deep discussion. Who knows if they have a plan in place for next year yet? I mean, baseball
if they have to start the year with this situation going on? Yeah. I mean, my personal thought is that even if fans aren't attending in April, which is quite likely, or at least at very reduced capacity, we saw what was it, Jacksonville that had like 6,000 fans or 16,000, and then I think Kansas City had some fans. But other than that,
Korea has fans, but they're doing like less fans. Everyone has to have a mask, and
Australia too, yeah. Shout out to some of our listeners that have been to some ball games there.
If the United States decides to pull their heads out of their ass and put some masks on, then maybe we could be back to somewhat normal and everything will be fine. But
masks don't work.
Apparently that's not going to happen.
I mean, it was just a fleeting thought because the hubris of baseball is to not put a plan in place for next year and be like, we'll just figure it out.
I think a lot of people assumed it'd be over by then, right?
And it could be, but I obviously I think it's a pretty good chance that the vaccine's going to be available by then. Maybe not for 330 Americans by April, but certainly probably a third of the country. But there's a couple of variables in play, right? One is how bad was everything in the fall and winter, right? We could have a third wave, whatever you want to call it, second wave, third wave, I don't know. It doesn't matter. You could have just an absolute explosion in cases to the point where things are just so bad they're going to shut baseball down. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But if things kind of go, oh, there's a wave and the vaccine comes, I think it really depends on how many people are going to be willing to get it as far as how many fans can come in. But even if fans can't come in, at this point, I think baseball's to this point proven they can do it, even with some flare-ups of COVID with the Marlins and the Phillies and this false positive, that they could probably start the season on time and play 162, even if, fans are limited or not coming in April until
it'll be easier to make up these games too. Like when somebody has a false positive and they have to have 2 games off, a la the Giants. I'm still kind of proud as a Giants fan that our team is not one of the ones that has gotten a case.
Yeah, it's kind of like, bummer, they got it now. Yeah, and it didn't happen. So.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So, I mean, it'll also be nice. They wrap up their road season this week in Seattle and Oakland, and it'll be nice to get rid of the American League. I mean, I'm so tired of seeing the same teams over and over and over again already. It'll be so nice next year when they get back to playing the Reds and the Cubs and the Mets and the Marlins. Well, maybe not the Marlins, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
Yay, Marlins. Yeah, they got one homestand left against the Rockies and the Padres, and I think it's like 7 games or something. And that'll be interesting. That's going to be the last bit of their playoff push. They're certainly going to be in contention when they return home, or they should be mathematically. So those games are going to mean a ton. And I'm hoping to attend one of the Rockies games during the midweek. And God forbid if they're still, vying for a position going into that last weekend series, maybe I can snag one for a game they could get in. That would be pretty sweet. Although I think the media would be pretty heavy for that one, but
you never know. Padres, and they're the hot team.
Yeah, they're the sexy new thing, man.
Yeah, well, as long as the Giants go 3-2 this week and stay at 500, they should be fine heading into last week. So I think we are at least going to be handicapping the home stretch next week on the show.
For sure. All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 207. You can follow us collectively at TortureCast on Twitter, like us on Facebook by the same moniker. Follow us individually on Twitter at ChadK21 for myself, at 2outhits for Eric, that's with the number 2, and at Willie Dills for Willie. Willie, you got anything going on? Your Twitch stream, anything else you want to throw out there?
Pretty much just the Twitch stream, playing some Hearthstone, some Runeterra, some Fall Guys, and apparently now everyone's really into this Among Us game, so we might try to put together some lobbies for that. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it's basically like a murder mystery style game, but it's a video game. So you got like 10 people on a ship, and 2 of them are secret imposters who are trying to kill everybody. And you have to, go around trying to fix the ship, but they are going around trying to kill you. And then after people die, or you discover that somebody dies, you go in, you have a discussion and try to figure out who the imposters are. It's pretty cool, actually. But, yeah, you kind of need a full group to play it. So
25 memes I looked at last night now suddenly make sense to me.
Right? Yeah. It's taking the world by storm. It's like a 3-year-old game too, and I don't know what happened.
I've heard of it, but
everybody
I didn't know that was
discovered it all at the same time or something, and now it's all over Twitch. So we might be trying to get some of that going as well.
All right, cool.
Which should be fun. Twitch.tv/WillieDills, so you can find me playing that.
And Eric had a bunch of stuff happen in his personal life. I know he's getting resettled. So, do you have anything to pimp though?
No, I got nothing. Give me a few more weeks. I still don't have an office together. Maybe I'll write something by the time the playoffs come around. But I haven't sat still. This is the longest I've sat still for probably 3 weeks now. So, you guys are my distraction for the last few weeks. So hopefully that crap's behind me and we can look forward to the rest of the baseball.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, that's going to do it. Hey, man, 13 games left. This is crazy. The Giants got a 1.5 game lead. So we will see you probably next Monday, and it probably will be our last mid-regular season or during the regular season podcast, right, as they head down the final stretch of the final 7 games of the season. So we'll see you next week for episode 208. Until then, Willie, you want to do it?
Yeah, that's going to do it for TortureCast. Boom.